welcome to the show this week. We're delighted to have Bradley Rice here with us, who's a founder of Talent Stacker, who likes. Oh, sorry, I'm going to start again. At the start before. Right. Welcome to the show, everyone. We're delighted to have Bradley Rice here, the founder of Talent Stacker, who's going to be sharing with us all about the benefits of working as a freelancer in the Salesforce ecosystem. Bradley has been on a journey of supporting people to launch their careers in Salesforce, very much like Supermums over the last many few years. And so we're very much allies in this space. We want to help people launch incredible, flexible careers, and we share that same mission and goal. So we're absolutely delighted to be talking about this together and talking about Bradley's freelancing program that he'll talk about later on in the show. But Bradley, let's start off about talking about the benefits of freelancing. Why is it something somebody should consider as part of their Salesforce career choice?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to get to spend some time with you guys. So I'm excited. So to actually answer your question, what are the benefits of freelancing? To me, there are a lot. So I'll share the ones that sort of come to mind for me. Number one, it's flexibility and autonomy. So I've gone through phases of life where, like when my daughter was born, I wanted to be at home as much as possible, but I also still needed to get the bills paid. So I was able to work a flexible 15 to 20 hour a week schedule. And I had more control over how many clients am I working? Am I trying to close new deals or am I going to focus on what I have right now and try to keep things light? But then
Mm.
when there are times when you're going through maybe trying to buy a new home or you're moving or you have unexpected health expenses, you can ramp up, right? And you can work those 40 plus hour weeks and add new clients. And it just gives you flexibility across the board with your time, with your values, those kind of things. That's the biggest one to me. I think when done right, you end up making much more money. The ceiling is much higher for what you can make as a freelancer compared to a full-time employee. But of course, that comes with responsibility, and we can talk about that throughout the show. So there are a lot of benefits there. You're diversified. Your income stream is diversified. A lot of people diversify their investments. So I think it makes sense that you would also want to diversify your income. You don't want to wake up to an email or a meeting and you lose 100% of your income. What if you had three clients and you only lost 33% of your income? So to me, those are the biggest benefits: lifestyle, flexibility, income potential, and income diversity.
Interesting.
What about you guys? Like, what kind of benefits do you see for sort of like your audience? And do you think there's an appetite for this type of work?
Absolutely. I mean, it's the story that I share with the Supermums when we're launching, well, encouraging women that this is a great career opportunity because it's where I started. I started as a freelancer, as a Salesforce professional, not having had a background in it either, and was then suddenly earning £400 day rates and earning more than I was in the job previously that I was running, whilst also being able to breastfeed my baby at home and manage all of that. And actually, my daughter would only breastfeed for a year, so I was like, well, I have to do that. So imagine if I had a job and be like, well, actually, I can't come back to work because she really wants to breastfeed. Like, what would I have done? That's why I advocate when I launch Supermums, because it absolutely is a flexible, well-paid career opportunity. And I think what we're going to unpack today is a lot around those things around, well, actually, how do we make this work? Because obviously, there's a lot of fear questions. Like, how do I find my client? What do I need to do? So I think absolutely this will be a great topic today to unpack it because it's certainly worked for me. And it's something that we do see amongst our super mums as well. Over the last 8 years, we've helped many people set up. And in order to go networking and attending events, quite often you might need to set up a professional email address and domain. So people set up a freelance email address, or they've done some work experience with some of our clients, and then they've got some follow-on work off the back of that. So then they've gone freelance off the back of that as well. So it really helps build their portfolio and their CV and sort of make it happen. I mean, Lynn and Kelly, you speak to the super mums every day. What else do you see from this side? Is it what questions people have?
So I think, sorry, Dean, if you didn't mind, I just jumped in there.
You
I
carry
think
on.
there's two aspects of it. So for me, I would love to have a lot more information about this to give better advice because I have a number of different trainees, super mums who are coming towards the end of their program, and they're saying that they want more flexible kind of work where they're not tied down to one employer, work where they can pick and choose the work they want to do. So it's interesting to see what the kind of differences between freelancing and being a PAYE employee is really, so that I can really advise them better.
Yeah, and I think probably from my side as well, obviously, I speak to people globally all day, every day, the same as you do, Kelly. And I think we often find that people that have done some freelancing, they add that to their CV, their resume, depending on where you are, and it absolutely propels them in their careers. So I think it's a really great topic, and I'm sure that everybody will love to hear what you've got to say about that. And I suppose a question that I would have as a first question really would be, how do you find your first client? How would you get started?
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways. So I think first, just sort of touching on what we talked about a moment ago, and that's the major difference I would say is that when I talk to people and they're like, should I go for a full-time job or should I go for freelancing starting out, especially? What I try to tell people is just being aware and setting expectations that you're effectively now going to take on a Salesforce role, but you're also going to be a small business owner. So keep that in mind. Like, I don't want to set people up to think like this is super easy. I don't think anything worth doing is super easy from my experience in life. And yes, you're going to do some small business stuff and there's going to be a learning curve, right? And if you come from a small business background, then maybe it'll be easier for you to ease in from that direction. And to me, it's not a huge deal. I always look at small business as it's a lot of small things, and that can feel huge when you try to think of it all at once. But if you just do one little thing at a time, and usually that can be a day or a couple of days where you spend an hour or two each day, and it all just kind of gets done. And we can dive in deeper on what does it mean to run a small business, right? And I know we have a time constraint. We can't just talk for 4 hours here, but you're going to have a job, and then you're going to run the back end of the business too. And that can be really streamlined or that can be really complex depending on how you set it up. Other things, though, like getting into that big question, I get that question a lot, Lynn, and it's how do I get that first client? And that's a scary conversation for a lot of people. They're like, how am I supposed to do it? I don't know. And I've got a few examples that work really well from our end. If you're talking totally entry level, you haven't worked a full-time job before, a lot of times you'll volunteer with a company and you'll do some free work. But what I like to say is kind of draw a line in the sand and say, I'll do 20 hours of free work and do a really great job in those 20 hours, right? Look for low hanging fruit, the things that really impact the business and make the end users and the management go, wow. And that typically those are things like if they've got broken validation rules or a broken automation that's just throwing up errors all the time and confusing people, or a report that they would love to have, but they know the data is wrong and they can't quite figure out why the data is wrong. But if you could clean up that report and make the data be right, it would make all the difference. And those are pretty entry level tasks that you can get in there and make a big impact. And then after 20 hours, you go, I noticed these 20 other things that we could do, but I can't volunteer forever. But here's my rate, and I'll keep it low for you guys since I love working with you. I hope you love working with me, and pitch them on maybe it's a 40-hour project, or in my case, I love managed services agreements. So like long-term support agreements, like a year, 10 hours a month for a year. I prefer that over a one-time, even a 200-hour project. I'd rather do 10 hours a month for a long time and have stable income. So that's one example for entry level, but I won't go into all these in detail. We can dive in on anything you want, but common thing I see when you're leaving a job, it's really common, at least in the States, to put in a 2-week notice. Well, I advise people don't put in a 2-week notice. Like, let them know that you're leaving, but that you would love to continue working with them on a contract basis and that you can do, again, 10 hours a month, 20 hours a month. You know exactly how much you were getting paid, what's budgeted for this role. So you can help them train their next staff member. You can help them with those critical roles while they hire something else, and you can get everything done for them. It's a win-win for everybody. For me, I had a lot of fun applying for full-time jobs. And then as soon as the recruiter or the first layer, like HR person would call, I would say, hey, I just want to be straightforward. I actually would like to freelance. And I looked at the job description and I know I can get all of those requirements done in far less than 40 hours a week, and you don't have to pay me benefits. I could probably do this in 15 or 20 hours a week because I've been around and I can do these things. Let me take a look. Let me just have a conversation with the hiring team. And this could be a win for everyone. They could win financially. I could win for what I'm looking for, and you guys get the job done. And it's a beautiful thing. Other ways, just being involved in the community is a big deal in the Salesforce ecosystem. So opportunities come, right? We see a lot of times, even the people who land jobs through our programs, they'll go work and they'll work there for 6 months or a year, and then they'll come back and they go, oh, I really need to hire a junior admin, but they want to prove it. But I did get approved to hire someone part-time to come help me out and sort of learn under me. And those, if you're not involved in the community in the Salesforce ecosystem, then you will never see those opportunities. They don't go on job boards. You won't see them on LinkedIn or Indeed. So I could keep going and going, but I assure you, you can use typical business processes, lead magnets, guesting on shows, coming and talking about your services, and just getting the word out there. And the truth is, if you want to build this big enterprise consultancy, then yeah, you're going to have to go beyond that. But if you just want to get stable income for yourself, or maybe a friend that you're working together with because they have some beneficial skills to go along beside you, those kind of things, honestly, you get your first couple of clients and word of mouth is probably going to set you up for all that you need.
And I want to echo that, Brad, because that's what happened with me. I carved out a niche as a freelancer, but my niche was nonprofits because that'd been my background. So then I started networking in the nonprofit space, nonprofit groups, the Salesforce nonprofit groups, put myself out there as I'm available, but also was looking at messages being sent and then responding to people that were looking for help and work. And then really got my first few gigs and then asked for recommendations to other people. So 60% of my work came through recommendations and repeat business. And then I got more work than I could do, which is why I ended up building a pool of consultants. So in the end, I had like 20 consultants working around me and grew a consultancy. That's a story for another day. But, working as a freelancer, that was the way that I went about it. And I think everything you've said is brilliant. Work through recruiters, I went and networked with consultancies that use me as an associate contractor as well. There's lots of ways of doing it. And so I think some great advice there.
So, Brad, if I came up to you and I said to you, what skills do I need to be able to do this? What would you tell me?
Yeah, well, per the Brad usual response, I would be real with you. You need a little bit of everything, and that scares people. But what I do say is you don't necessarily have to be an expert at anything. And I think that's where a lot of people get hung up at first. They're like, I don't have this tremendous value in one spot. And so I'll actually answer your question now. So let go of that limiting thought that you have to be some superhuman, amazing savant, technical architect talent. You don't. I've been successful at this, and I promise you, I am not any of those things. And when you come in, what do you really need, though? You need to be, number one, you're going to have to be a good communicator or learn to be a good communicator. And what I mean by that is when things get ramped up and they get a little dramatic or there is a fire, you can't be the one screaming fire and blowing the whistle, right? You have to be the one calming everyone down and saying, okay, yes, there is a fire. We're totally aware, but we have a plan and this is how we're going to take care of this. We've all seen problems before. We know how to solution for problems like this. Not a big deal. It's serious, but we're going to take care of it. So just communicating through those situations, specific skills, I would say like you need some light marketing skills and you can learn those. You need some light sales skills and you can learn those. You're also going to have to wear every hat, right? So then you get into sort of that business analyst role. So you go from marketing, people are interested, sales, okay, there's a lot of people who might be interested, but now how do you help them prioritize and actually get that into a proposal and get them to sign and say, okay, I'm going to pay you X amount of dollars to do this work. And then you move into, I really have to gather these requirements down to a T, right? Down to the individual field and how many characters it's going to be. And if there's going to be any validations around it and which layouts and all the roles and profiles and just everything, right? So you have to, in my opinion, a good consultant should be able to map that out in requirements documentation and solution documentation before they ever need to log into an org. Unless you need to audit an org for something that's existing or happening just to get a lay of the land, you should have everything mapped out that you're going to work on, signed off on by the client, that this is your requirement that I heard. These are all of them. These are the solutions I have laid out for those requirements. Are you good with that? Perfect. Now let's go build. So you're in that BA role for a little while you talk to the client, you get those requirements and you get it. And then you kind of move into like a solutioning role and you start to solution on paper. And then you get into, for me, I stuck with declarative work because I never learned to be a developer. So it was moving into sort of a admin role, but also maybe a light architecture and then actually building the solutions. But then you switch over to training, right? And you have to be able to train the administrators if they need handoff training or train the end users and just be prepared to do all of that. And so there's a lot of steps. And what I'll say is you are responsible for every aspect of your business. You don't work at a consultancy. They're not going to hand you a closed deal. You're not going to hand it off to a trainer at the end of the project. You're not going to have a PM that interfaces with the client while you just do the task. You're not a task doer anymore. You're a small business owner. So I would say, to summarize, you're going to have a little bit of marketing, a little bit of sales, a little bit of VA. You're going to have to be qualified to actually implement the solutions you've set out for their requirements. And then you're going to have to be able to train them and close that project out. So yeah, there's a lot of
What if I
micro
was shy though, or really nervous to talk to people? That's the thing I'm
You're
thinking
not,
about.
Kelly.
I'm not. But if I was shy, do you think confidence plays a big part in being able to do these elements?
That's a good question. I think confidence comes with experience in a lot of ways, though. I think when you're getting your first client, you're going to be nervous. And I always try to be honest that even when I was 4 years into freelancing and it was a small gig and I knew I could just knock it out, I still got nervous for those first calls. I'm like, are they going to say something? Do they actually think I'm good enough? Am I going to slip up and say something where they find out that I'm not as qualified as I think I am or whatever it is? So I think nervousness comes, anxiety comes, but I think those feelings are healthy because they keep you on your toes and they keep you aware and they keep you from slipping up. So I like a good balance of nervousness. I think if you ever feel like you're fully confident, then you're probably overlooking details and you're probably going to make mistakes and maybe you won't even realize it out of arrogance. So, yeah, I think confidence comes with the territory. Your first client, you're going to be probably talking to your friends and family and maybe some other freelancers or communities that you're part of and just letting go of some of those feelings. But ultimately, once you knock out 2 or 3 projects and you realize you're allowed to make mistakes. You're allowed to make big mistakes as long as you take responsibility for them. And you're not expected to be perfect. And guess what? The client's not perfect either. And they have a handful of problems that they're going to create too. So you're in this together and humans are expected to be human.
I've got a good reflection on that though as well, is we can be underconfident because we don't know what we're doing. And I just want to tell a story about one of our super mums that also went through Bradley's freelancing project. So there's a chap called Bill Ward, and he started on our admin course.
Oh, I love Bill.
We love Bill.
We love Bill. So Bill
Love
was
Bill.
Bill's an ex-pilot,
Legend.
right? But Bill went on a Supermum Salesforce admin course. Then he did our consultancy skills course and learned all about the business analysis skills, the agile project management, change management, and those additional skills that Brad talked about. And then he went on and did Bradley's freelance project training. And off the back of that, Bill did his non-profit work experience where he volunteered for free. It's a maximum of 48 hours that they do on our admin course. And then he did exactly what you said, Brad. He said to them, you've got all this other stuff to do, and pitched himself a proposal because he knew what to say because he'd gone on your program. And so he won then that gig, and that's through Supermum's recruitment. So we broker him in as well, and we speak on his behalf. So as a recruiter, we can negotiate those T's and C's, and so it doesn't feel that awkward sometimes. But he's now got a secure contract with them. He's been working with them over 1.5 years. They've just doubled, quadrupled his number of hours. And like you say, he's not just dependent on them. And so that's a great example of somebody we've both supported, but he's built his confidence to know what to do, what to say. He's been equipped because he's invested in the training. And it leads me on to that next question. We talk about investment. And for me, I trained in all these areas too. That's how I got my confidence. And I did have to invest, but then I was earning £400 day rates. So obviously we can earn, but there's a cost. So Bradley, what are the other costs that we need to think about other than training, obviously, in these skills? What are the other costs that people need to consider?
Yeah, it's really interesting. And there are varieties, right? Like with anything, like the cost of buying a home or whatever you do for your food in your daily life. Like everybody kind of comes with a different comfort level and what they want. And there's a different budget with different levels. But what I will say is that what I love about Salesforce consulting freelance and any digital product is that the beautiful thing is that there is a free version to this, right? So if we talk about what would a free version look like, probably a LinkedIn company page, a free version of a marketing tool like MailChimp, maybe a free version of Canva to create your graphics or anything you want for your emails or your social post or anything like that. You of course need a bank account set up because we are going to get paid. And then Google Meet has free versions that you can use in other meeting tools to, of course, they have limitations, right? Everything has a limitation when it's free, but there are ways that would get you off the ground. Like I got off the ground totally free. I managed all of my accounting inside of Excel and I had a free version of that. And there's just, if you want to do it free, you can, but there's a cost to doing it free too. So I would say what I would call sort of the real deal, if you want to take it to that next level, I started really frugal. I grew up in a very frugal family, so free was the way for me. But there's this next level where you go and you get that domain, right? So you figure out what's my company name going to be? I'm going to get my domain and at least have that ability to have your website, right? And that's going to be typically domains run about $10 to $20 a year, right? And then so you find your custom domain, and then that also allows you to get a custom email account. So then you can have Bradley at your custom domain, and that looks much more official whenever you share that with people. And even a great email account, like if you use Google Workspace, which is on the higher end or at least mid end of email accounts, that might be $70 a year. So now you're up to a total of $84, at least USD. And now you've got a domain, you've got an email account, but with that Google Workspace, $84, you now have unlimited Google meetings. You can use Google Docs and Google Sheets and share those and create all the different sharing requirements that you need and hosting your client data and information and things like that. I would also recommend getting, solid web hosting and setting up at least a basic 1 or 2 page website. And that's probably going to cost you about $190 a year. And then the biggest thing probably is going to be registering an actual business. And at least in the US, that ranges state by state from about $100 to $300. And it's a one-time fee to register your business. But you're talking all in, even if you go with the LinkedIn company page, the LinkedIn company page, MailChimp marketing automation, Canva for your graphics, your bank account, your Google Workspace setup, your domain, your web hosting, registering your business, you're still all in that first year for about $350 to $550. But then ongoing, you should expect that to be about $250 a year for those ongoing expenses. Now you can keep going up from there, right? Like Calendly licensing for automatic scheduling events, paying an accountant or having accounting software, video recording, SaaS tools, like how much you spend is unlimited. You can keep going up, but you can absolutely run a professional business for well under $1,000 a year. And I would say probably closer to $500 a year. But of course, the sky's the limit. If you want to spend money, people will take your money.
Right. Yeah. And just elaborating on something you said a little while ago, in terms of documentation, I mean, what would you say that would make you look professional in terms of contracts, any documents? How would you advise that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think it's an important question. And I wish more people asked that. I get a lot of the questions like, how much do I charge? How do I get my first client? Those kind of things where they're focused really on the front part. Like, how do I market if I'm employed by someone? And what if they see that I'm trying to find clients? Like, those are a lot of those front end questions, but those are the extremely solvable problems that everyone goes through. And a lot of people fail to ask the question you just asked, like, how do I come across professional? How do I make sure that I can hold my own once I've closed a deal and I've taken it and now I'm doing it? You do need to be the professional because that's what you're selling, right? You're selling a consultant level individual into these companies, and that's why they're paying you, and they're going to pay you great money to do these services. So what does that look like? First of all, I always say you should never be in a position where you're waiting for the client to tell you what to do next. So just start that way. If you're ever in a position where the client needs to tell you what to do next, you are no longer the consultant guiding them through the project. You're a task steward. You may as well just be a support admin, and that'll come at a lower rate, right? So what you need to be in a position to do is guide them forward at every step. And so that means, hi, we've done our discovery process. I understand your high level requirements. You know what questions to ask, right? So the first documentation for you would probably be entry questionnaires for the client. Like, what departments are we talking about? What are the pain points that we're talking about? Who are the players that are involved in this? Who do we need to get involved that we haven't thought about yet? Do we need to get them involved right away or later in the project? What about timelines? Do you guys take big breaks at certain times of the year? Their company events? These are all the things that people fail to ask. And then project timelines completely fall apart. And you fail to realize that key players from the company side were going to be on a 2-week vacation and now everything's backed up. And you don't want to be the person who's like trying to adjust on the fly. You want to have your ducks in a row up front. So project questionnaires, just to get things kicked off, make sure on the same page, definitely key. Moving through to things like requirement documentation. You should be doing that from the first time you get a DM from them on LinkedIn or whatever else to all the way through to giving them a proposal. You should always be hearing them, documenting what you're hearing and pulling that together. One thing that I messed up on is I actually got a signed contract and I forgot to consider payment terms. And like, it felt great. Everything was going so fast and so smooth. And it was like, this is awesome. I've got a statement of work in front of them. That's another document that you're going to need, is like a statement of work, a proposal, a quote, kind of all in the same, if you will. And you bring that forward. Well, the next thing you need are payment terms. Like, how are they going to pay you? Are you going to invoice them through an invoicing tool where they can just pay however they want? Are you going to send them an invoice through Stripe? Are they going to cut you a check or wire you money? Like, how is this going to work? How are they comfortable paying? And you should be comfortable accepting whatever they want to pay with, right? Because why make them go over an obstacle? And there are free tools to do all of this with. So really, it's your due diligence to be prepared. And I forgot to get payment terms. So I'd already started on the project and I realized, when do I get paid? Like, this is a fun project, but when do I get paid? And it was kind of awkward to go back. And then you don't look like the polished professional, right? You're like, hey, this is how I usually get paid. Is that okay with you? So if you can bring that up front, typical payment terms might be paying upfront for small projects. For larger projects, 100 hours plus, it might be milestone based. Like, we're going to get through discovery, then I'm going to charge you 20%. We're going to get through design and solution, and that'll be 20%. Then I'm going to build it 20%, train 20%, and then go live support is the last 20%, and you're off to the races, right? But as you move through, there's a lot of documentation. And this is where people fall flat, in my opinion. So I mentioned a few things just in the sales process, but then you get into requirement documentation, solutioning documentation, project timelines, status reports that you probably need to get out to them on a weekly basis just to keep them aligned. Because when you get into build, you may not talk to them for a month, but they still need to be up to date with what you're doing and have eyes on the project, right? Other things like end user training, administrator training. Once you finish every project that I do, I want to end it in a managed services agreement. I never want to just sign for another 50-hour project, 60-hour project. So I'm always upselling them, like we talked about with volunteering. I'm upselling them into a managed services agreement for the next year. So sort of just spewing off, but you can see if you like rewind that clip, there's a lot of documents involved in that. And I probably touched on 50% of them.
Oh, wow.
But once you have them, you've got them, and then you can follow your process and you look professional.
Absolutely.
You need them or else you get tripped up, right? No documentation, having run a consultancy for 8 years. The lack of documentation was the only thing that would ever flag up if something didn't get covered off. So it's so important to get right. And definitely we can support with that. And you can support with that, Bradley, on your course as well. Like the types of templates. So you want that checklist. What is it I need to know? Get the templates and tools. That's what Bill's benefited from through going through our programs. He's got all the toolkit. It just gets you off to the best start, doesn't it? And then you're minding the gap and these been pitfalls along the way.
So Bradley, a lot of our super mums, they will do a 48-hour project volunteering at the end of their admin course, and they've got support from their mentor, from us, the team, possibly some staff where they're working. But transitioning into freelancing, what if somebody was working on a project and they got stuck on something? Who do they turn to?
Yeah, I think this is the importance of community. And I always tell people that networking is important for a number of reasons, but this is just yet another reason why networking is important, right? And if you look around, do you know someone who's good at Marketing Cloud? Do you know someone who's great with Revenue Cloud or Data Cloud or on the cusp of Agentforce and what's going on there? Now, you've probably seen some people talk about it. You've probably heard people talk about it, write things, write blogs, this and that. But if you actually ever connected with those individuals and said, hey, I'm in this position where I'm landing freelance clients, and sometimes they have needs that seem to align with your skills. would it be okay if I use you as a resource? And I'll even pay you to use you as a resource. And that's what I would do is I would develop, I knew that I was not a developer. So right out of the gates, I knew that was going to be a common need, just basic Apex, LWC, Java, those kind of skills. I knew I was going to need them. So I knew I needed a network with people who had those skills, right? So then you connect with individuals like Warren Walters, and then he's connected with a huge network of developers, and they're looking for freelance work too, right? And so there are an abundance of very talented Salesforce people in the ecosystem, and not all of them want to go market and hunt for clients and close deals. But if you can bring them closed deals and say, hey, I've got a 100-hour project, I need you for about 15 hours, cool. And they absolutely will hop in. A lot of times they're on non-compete agreements with consultancies. So that is the perfect setup for them to work 15 hours behind the scenes, not sharing their name, not being on calls with clients. You're handling all the client facing stuff, and they can make some money on the side while they work their day job.
Love
So
that.
Interesting.
that one is all about networking in. And so at Talent Stacker, we have this for our freelancers, we have a skills matrix. And so we have a list of all of our active freelancers. And then we have a list of not all, but a lot of the potential skill areas. And then everyone's rated in these skill areas. So if you need help on Marketing Cloud, you hop into the skills matrix, look at the Marketing Cloud column, see who lands where and kind of what their rates are. You pick somebody out and you reach out and see if they're open to do some project work. And so you're in alignment by being part of a freelance community.
I think it's so important because then they bring work back to you as well. Like, can you build it up? So it
Oh,
definitely
of
worked for
course.
me. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not all on your shoulders. So is there anything that we haven't asked, Brad, that people need to know?
Anything you haven't asked, there's a lot of questions in the freelancing space. There's pay rates, which is very nuanced. You might, at least in the US, you're starting at maybe $30 or $40 USD per hour. We do everything by hour. I've seen sometimes like monthly rates and stuff like that. We don't do a whole lot of that. It's like you get charged by the hour. And of course, if you have like a set of 30 hours a month, then I guess you could convert that to a monthly rate. But usually we talk in terms of dollars per hour. So 30 or $40 per hour for even the most basic administration work. But if you're getting into like the process we talked about, carrying them all the way through from start to finish and leading them, you're really at a baseline of probably $70 to $90 an hour. But then get into specialty skills like Marketing Cloud or CPQ or anything else, and you actually have an ability, and you're looking for that match, right? You have a specialty skill and it matches with the specialized need of a client, then I mean, $150 an hour very quickly for those specialized niche skills. And you can do the math. I mean, it just keeps going up, which is just wild. I could talk all day about the inefficiencies of managed services agreements and how, like, if you're on a contract and you have a 30-hour a month contract that pays $3,000 a month, a lot of times in December, clients are doing holiday different things and they don't even use you for the entire month just about, but you get paid either way on a managed services contract. So you might float through December and then they take a while to wake up in January. You might go 6 weeks and just cash paychecks waiting for them to wake back up and get busy utilizing you again. So you can work, you could have 100 hours worth of contracts in a month and you might only be utilized for 60, but you still get paid for all 100. So there's a lot of nuance in how you handle that, how you handle your payments. I could go on for days about all the different little aspects, but no, I do think we covered the major thought points of getting into freelancing.
It's interesting, isn't it? There's so much to know, but also, as we sort of talked about, I think you building your confidence going for this. We've actually seen loads of super mums launch as freelancers either permanently or used it as their initial step, and then it's helped them get that permanent job opportunity. Working with you, Bradley, you're running a program that helps people get set up as freelancers and gives them those additional skills beyond what we provide at Supermums. So we can do the admin, we can do the consultancy skills, equip people with BA and everything else like that. What is it that your program offers that takes them to that next level of going, right, I'm going to do this and go freelance?
Yeah, we actually take you through the entire process. So things like marketing, we will help you build out lead magnets for your business, free PDF giveaways for your ideal clients that you want to attract. We'll teach you how to navigate. You've got a full-time job, but you don't want your employer to necessarily see that while you're marketing. How to brand yourself using platforms like LinkedIn to get your word out, but then also, how to think about brand consistency across your LinkedIn company page, across your website, across the emails that you send. We even walk you through training on how to build email funnels to warm up your potential clients and get them ready to actually have a sales call with, right? And then once you get to that sales process, we teach you, we have the decks for pitching your services so that you can walk into a client call ready with those demo decks, showcasing past projects, showcasing testimonials from previous clients and all those kind of things, all the way through, like we've mentioned before, every single document you need, every step of the way, you basically click download now, add in your company information and your logo, and now you've got your statement of work and proposal ready to go. You've got your requirement gathering documentation ready to go. You know exactly which meetings to schedule and when. So we really take you through the entire process, all the way through growing your company, hiring subcontractors when you're ready for that moment. We handle tax advice, not legal tax advice, but what are other freelancers doing? How do you manage this? Deductions, what can you or can't you deduct? How should you set up your business? Is it a limited liability or should you transition over to an S corp? And there's just so many things that go into it. And it's really nice to be surrounded by a team of people who have already done this before. So when you have a question, we have an answer because we live it and we've lived it. So I would say that's really what we do. And it's a fully focused community. Support, daily support, email support, private group support. So, I mean, to me, when you're surrounded by people who have a similar goal, they're sharing those opportunities with you and you're sharing those opportunities with them, nothing beats it.
I think the importance of community is so important. When you're running your own business, it's quite lonely, right? You're by yourself every day. And that's actually why I started Supermums, because I was like, I'm by myself every day. But
now you have us.
I have a whole team. But you kind of want to, all of these questions you've got. So it's amazing what you've set up. That really just gives everybody all the tools they need to set up, be confident in doing it. And I think equally, you've got an amazing community. Supermums have got an amazing community. Like, it's all about building that network, sharing your expertise. And so we will provide more details about Bradley's program in the show notes, and check out on the YouTube video as well. In the description, we'll provide all details about Bradley's program there. It's a great way to lift off your career, and we want to see you be successful and maybe grow consultancy if you want to too. That's another episode and we can go into that. But thank you, Brad, for joining us today. It's been lovely to talk to you, and together absolutely we'll see loads of people be really successful and to have a career in life they love, which is our motto, right, at Supermums.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for having me, and I look forward to working with you guys in the future.
Thank you, Brad.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Lovely to meet you. Take care.